It all started one quiet night when I decided to do my best. With my mom upstairs engrossed in her endless phone calls, I felt like the house was ours alone. I jumped on my dad's lap in the living room, whispering silly secrets in his ear, and said, "Stop." He claimed it was serious, but I kissed him. He kissed me. In the same house where I played with dolls and begged him to tell me bedtime stories. I kissed my dad like he was my lover. He pulled me onto the bed and ripped off my clothes. I wrapped my legs around his waist, begging for more. He slipped his hand into my pants, and his soft finger massaged my anus. I was completely lost. In that moment, I lost track of time. The sensations were incredible. It was an unforgettable moment in my life. I had to leave. It hit me with such intensity. It was as if I had waited so long for this moment. Forever. I am heavenly. Hold on bravely. All I want. This is a story. How I experienced the impossible. And if you're new here, yes, this is my channel. Welcome. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe. Hit the like button and turn on notifications. Hey, loyal subscribers, thanks for stopping by. Let's begin. I grew up in a cozy castle, not your typical castle with stone turrets or gilded thrones, but an elegant fortress in the suburbs of Chicago, with polished floors, designer furniture, and a walk-in closet bigger than most bedrooms Dorian and Vera built. Everything, the world, was handed to me on a silver platter. Dresses, phones, vacations, anything I wanted, I got. I had nothing to gain. All I had to do was smile or frown, and everything fell into place. Maybe that's where it all began. The idea that I could have anyone, even him, maybe. Overstudying was no exception. Teachers raised my grades beyond what I deserved. Boys adored me. Girls were jealous. I knew how to dominate. A room could change its mood with a whisper or a touch. I wasn't ashamed of it. I craved power and relished every moment of it. At home, though, it was different. More dangerous. My father was still handsome. He had those classic features, big, strong arms, and a raspy, velvet voice. I prospered in finance and came home glowing with success. As a child, he used to make fun of me and call me his daughter. I would laugh and melt in his arms. But then something changed. I turned 18, and his hugs became longer, and felt different, as if he wasn't just holding his daughter anymore. I noticed things. His gaze stayed steady as I walked into the kitchen, wearing only a t-shirt. His hands lingered a little too long, on my shoulders. He never crossed the line. He always stayed within the bounds. I could feel it. The tension was palpable, the intrigue palpable. It was as if he suspected who I would become. I wasn't either. My mom was always on the move, a constant presence at charity events, yoga sessions, and girls' dinners. She loved me deeply. I think she trusted me too much. Maybe she trusted my dad too much. Gradually, the house became ours. Just his and me. Maybe I imagined it at first, maybe not. But it all started with a little spark. I would strut around in tight shorts, bend over a lot to pick something up, and ask him if he thought I looked great in my new dress. At first he laughed, shook his head, and acted. As if I was mocking, I caught a twinkle in his eyes. I walked past him in the hall, and his breath caught. That's when I realized he was on the same page. The line we weren't supposed to cross was already blurring. One night I walked into the living room wearing only his shirt. He was lying on the couch, immersed in a book. I pretended like nothing was wrong. I took a soda from the fridge and sat down next to him. His body stiffened. He avoided my gaze. "What's going on?" I tucked my legs under me. "You must be wearing something on Celeste." He asked why. I tilted my head, wondering, innocence. I've worn a swimsuit before. It's one of a kind. I leaned forward, really no answer. I got up and stormed out of the room, which was tempting. I waited for Mom to leave for a weekend at the spa. The second time, everything was set to wine music. The lights dimmed, and I invited Dad over to watch a movie with me. I told him I missed our time together. He sat next to me, nervous and wary. I laughed too loudly. I touched his knee. I bent down to fill his glass, leaning toward him. Halfway through the movie, I leaned on his shoulder, feeling his body shake like a cord under my cheek. "You're drunk," he whispered. No primely. Relieved, he jumped up and went to bed. Another setback, but he collapsed. A bold move on the third try. Sunday morning vibes. Mom was in church. I thought Dad would be in the study, lost in a book. I walked in wearing only lace underwear and a sheer, almost transparent camisole. I gripped his coffee cup tightly and bent down to hand it to him. "Mom," I sang happily. He lifted his head and stopped. His gaze slid down my body. He landed on my thighs. He closed his eyes and turned away. "Now, get dressed." "Why not?" I teased him. "You won't like what you see." His jaw clenched. "I am your father." You missed the question. I perched on his lap. He let me go, and that was just the start. No kiss that day left. Untouched since then, but then everything shifted. I could see it in his eyes. A hunger he could no longer conceal. He dashed. Out of the room, the silence crackled with electricity. It happened. 3 days later, Mom's gone again, in the kitchen, barefoot grooving toe tunes while whipping up a midnight snack. Dad walked in, donning his robe bed, head alert. "You need to be in bed," he said. "You definitely should." He moved in closer. I stayed put, locked eyes, and held. The moment he kissed me, it was awkward, unsure, absolutely real. Once that line was crossed, there was no turning back that night. He led me to the living room couch and claimed me definitely nuts. Daughter his lady, the next morning we stayed silent about it. We exchanged a glance, a mix of shame and excitement sparking between us. I figured it would end there, just one terrible blunder. But it failed to do so. We plunged in waves, dragging us down. That was a mistake, Twisted. We just couldn't halt. I really didn't want to once you savor the forbidden nothing. Else matters that first night with Dad. Flipped everything upside down. It's not out there, it's within us. We crossed a line, and instead of recoiling, we charged forward. I woke up the next morning wrapped in his arms, his breath warm against my neck. Silence, rain, no words, no awkward apologies. A storm is brewing, not fading. Away I returned to my room just before dawn. Mom was still snoozing. I quickly brushed my hair in front of the mirror and flashed a smile. No guilt here, no sign of life, I felt. Unstoppable, stunning. Adored men are drawn to what ignites their passion, and Dad. I sparked feelings in him that Mom hadn't in years. It began to occur more frequently. I'd sneak into his room late at night, whether she was home or not. Silence reigned between us. No need to. He had given up. He's mine now. I knew exactly how to keep him. I'd rock his favorite colors, cook for him when Mom was swamped, crack up at his silly jokes, perch on his lap, finding interest in my phone. I once left a hickey on his neck. He slathered on makeup, hoping to hide it from Mom. But she caught on. He claimed it was a burn from a curling iron. She trusted him. She always trusted him. I could see the confusion in here. He has her gaze on him as he doubled over, and my jokes was electric, her glare. When he pulled out a chair for me, leaving her, standing was intense. She sensed it, the change. She had no idea how deep it really went. We didn't, either one. Night I went all out. Mom was upstairs, deep in a long phone call. I hopped onto Dad's lap in the living room, whispering silly secrets in his ear. He said, "Stop." He claimed it was unsafe. Still, I kissed him. He kissed me back, and suddenly in that very house where I once played with dolls and begged for bedtime stories, I was crossing a line I could never uncross, and pleaded for bedtime stories. I kissed my father as if he were my lover as soon as I heard Mom's footsteps. I sprang up and dashed into the hallway. He spent days fixing his hair and straightening his shirt. She burst in a second. Later, her eyes darting between us as if she could sense the truth, but lacked the words to express it. She stayed silent, just hit the kitchen. We nearly got caught, but the excitement. It just fueled our desire for more. It had evolved beyond mere lust, a hidden realm, a twisted paradise ours. Alone, let's meet in the garage, the laundry room, his workspace. I yanked him into the pantry while Mom was busy setting the table. Just 5 minutes, Tellini's a wicked smile. We were addicts fueling each other's cravings. I felt him sinking further. His texts became bolder. His stares lingered. One day, I discovered a new necklace on my bed, no note. No explanation, needed, a simple gift. I rocked it at dinner. Mom loved it. Dad nearly choked on his wine. I grinned, then cracks began to appear. He fired off questions. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling after their night together. "What's the plan?" he inquired. I just shrugged. "Having a blast together, this isn't right." "Celeste, just stop." He just couldn't. Sometimes he'd gaze at me, a deep ache in his eyes as if he regretted ever giving in. I knew better, that I cannot guilt, it was pure hunger. He was all in, he craved me like a fix. What about me? I was riding the wave of control. We let our guard down. Messy, I slipped on his shirt for breakfast, and Mom's gaze locked onto me for a whole minute. It came from the laundry basket. I said. She was silent, but I could see her mind racing. She began keeping a closer eye on us. No more frequent outings. Cancel her yoga classes weekend. Retreat canceled here. Ease tracked us as if we were strangers. Donning her family's faces next. The mistake happened. Sunday had arrived. Dad and I just returned from the store, cracking up over a silly joke I told in the car. I grabbed his hand, instinctively. Way too familiar. Way too soft. Mom caught it. She paused before responding. She simply observed. She knew, and I knew it that night. Dad burst into my room. He stayed fully dressed. He never laid a finger on me. He sat on the edge of my bed, face ashen. "She's beginning to have her doubts," he said. I kept silent. "This can't last indefinitely." I shot up, feeling scared. "Yes," he whispered. I leaned in, my fingers grazing. His knee toes aside, he glanced my way. The silence between us thickened. His face reflected the struggle between who he once was and who I had made him. But he stayed in my room that night. That's when I realized he had made his decision. Mom might have sensed the storm brewing. She might have caught the signs, picked up the whispers, sensed the betrayal in the air. But it was too late. We were done hiding. We were immersed in it. The silence after Mom left hit me. Like a freight train, silence reigns above. No voice calls from the kitchen. No clink of her wine glass post-dinner. Silence. We were left alone to face the truth. Dad went silent for days. He hardly touched his food. He glided through the house like a phantom. It was as if the walls were strangers to him. Now I did it. I felt liberated when she left. I thought it proved I was right, that I had won. But the silence she left behind, it felt heavier than I expected. I took what I wanted. No one was left to hold me back. I was always the heart of this house. I was the queen now, ruling a shattered kingdom. Quickly loses its thrill. In the first week, I focused on getting him back into our groove. I'd rock his favorite perfume, widen my robe, just a bit more as I walked by. I brushed my hand against his shoulder. He hardly glanced my way. He'd sit in the living room for hours, fixated on old family photos as if they might spring to life and guide him. Why? The long face. One night I leaned in, wearing just a tank top and lace panties, and asked him, "She's gone, isn't that exactly what you wanted?" No response. I pressed on. "She never knew you. Not the way." "I do." He finally faced me. His eyes were empty. "That's the issue. For the first time, I was at a loss for words. Is shattered. My wife," he declared. "I lost control. You kept going and I let you. You were unstoppable." "No." he said softly. I really should have. A crack formed within me, regretting it. Now I let out a sharp hiss. She's gone, and I'm still here. He averted his gaze. I approached. Him took his face in my hands. This dad was your choice, you picked me. I was weak, he whispered, you loved it. His hands clamped around my wrists, not tough, just steady. This isn't love, he declared. It never was. I locked eyes with him. So what was it? He broke. Free. I'm lost. The next morning, a suitcase awaited me by the door, him full to the brim. Said I freaked out. Where to next? I stood in the doorway, heart racing, wearing his sweatshirt. I'm getting help, he said. I've been chatting with a counselor. I'm diving into a retreat, time to level up. What's in it for me? He gazed at me. Acidness in his eyes. That was new and striking. Celeste, you need help too, beyond what I can offer. Perhaps more than anyone else. Rage surged beneath my skin. You're really just walking away. After it all, I've already lost my wife. He said, I can't lose myself either. And just like that, he was gone. The door slammed shut, leaving me alone, completely isolated. Absolutely not Mom, absolutely not Dad. A house brimming with echoes and secrets, untouched and unspoken. Time flew by. Then, weeks fly by. I called him, no response. I reached out to Mom. Zero. Zip nada. The house chilled. Dust piled up in the corners. No more perfume for me. Gave up on brushing my hair. Some mornings, I barely left my bed. I believed I could take it on. I didn't need them as sure did, despite all my games and power. I was still just a girl with no one to play with one. Afternoon, I stumbled upon a photo hidden in the drawer next to Dad's bed. We stood by the lake, soaking up the summer sun. Mom's hand rests on Dad's back. Wrapped my arms around them both. We seemed thrilled. Complete, I gazed at it. Intently, I tore it in too. No tears fell. No tears here. But I felt a crack inside. Silent break that echoed pain, but refused to mend. Months later, the house is still mine. It just doesn't feel like home. Anymore, a mere shell haunted by a terrible past. Mom never returned Dad's ending postcards from the treatment center. They're brief, respectful, far away. He now signs them Dorian. Not Dad. It's been ages since he left. I often find myself in the den, the birthplace of it all. I trace my fingers over the couch, where I first straddled him, where I first whispered secrets a daughter should never share. Did I stop? Would he have to? But then I realize I don't want to. Quit, he didn't either. That's the reality we both face. Stained wall, just paint over it. The decay below keeps spreading. What about this house? It might endure, but it will never be spotless. Again, we torched a family. Now we're surrounded by smoke. Mom's breakdown happened on a still day, way too quiet. It kicked off like any other morning. Sunlight burst through the windows. Birds chirped outside blissfully, unaware of the decay lurking within her home. I glided down in a satin robe, humming a tune. Dad was already in the kitchen brewing. Coffee? He glanced up as I walked in, eyes darting over me with that familiar look. Guilt and desire collide, but something was definitely off. Mom was missing from her usual chair. Her coffee cup remained empty. The air is devoid of her perfume. I never asked. I couldn't care less. The house felt like it was already mine. Good morning, I whispered as I brushed past Dad, fingers gliding over his back. He took his time to respond. Next, Celeste. This needs to end now. I paused, blink, and turned to him. Why not? She heard him say it in a low voice. Oh, she's nearly there. I can sense it. I chuckled quietly. All right. She's not strong. She's not taking any action. He looked at me, as if I were a complete stranger. Absolutely. Chilling yet. Here where? He stayed put, as I leaned in for a soft kiss, yet he kissed me back. That was it, he always kissed me right back. Little did I know Mom had been awake for hours just upstairs. I had no idea. She overheard us last night. The floorboards creaked softly. Outside her door, muffled whispers reached my ears, those giggles a silence that roared betrayal. For weeks she had spotted the signs, but now she was aware. She stayed up until noon. Her face was ghostly white. It felt like all the color had vanished. She avoided my gaze. She plopped down on the couch she folded, her hands in her lap. I stood in the doorway, cool and collected, self-assured. "Hey, Mom, everything good?" "Take a seat," she whispered. I shot a quick look at Dad. He stood frozen, trapped behind her coffee mug quivering in his hand. "Here comes Celeste." I strode into the room and took a seat across from her crossed legs. The rope slipped off my shoulder a bit. She held her gaze steady. I craved the truth. She gazed right through me. Everything I wasn't pretending to. Misunderstand which truth I mentioned. It just to see how things would go. Her lips formed a tight line. "Stop pretending you don't know." "You think I haven't noticed your gaze on him? His gaze is electric. I've noticed the stains on your sheets. Fragrance lingers in my bed. I'm no fool." Dad moved. In Vera's silence, she snapped, her voice shaking. Her eyes shot back to mine. "What's up, Celeste? Are you in bed with your dad?" Chill swept through the air. Dad let the mug slip from his hands. It crashed to the floor. Hot coffee splashed across the tiles. Everyone stayed. Still, I tilted my head. "Want me to leave?" She recoiled. That was all the answer. Needed. The silence lingered endlessly. Dad collapsed into the armchair, utterly drained. Mom just gaped. "What about me?" I stayed focused. "How could you do that?" she whispered at last. "He's your dad." "Absolutely not." "Cool voice," I said. "He's your man. You simply lost the spark to keep him engaged." She hit me, challenging. My cheek burned, but I stood my ground. I smiled. "Got it," I whispered. "Your true self." Her eyes brimmed with tears. She faced Dad. "What's the time frame?" He stayed silent. "What's the time frame?" She let out a piercing scream. He buried his face in his hands, disintegrating like paper. "Months," she gasped and stumbled back, as if he'd struck her. "I poured my all into you," she wept. "This family is yours now. This place, you wrecked it." "My bad," he murmured. "You went for it anyway." She let out a piercing shriek alongside her. Her voice broke. She glanced at us, eyes wide as if we were unrecognizable monsters. Burst into laughter, a chilling, fractured laugh. "Time to call the police." She wiped tears from her face. "I'm going to take you both down, not a chance." "Cool as ice," I said. "You adore him way too much. What about me? You never truly had control over me, did you?" That shattered her. She fell silent. She glided upstairs like a phantom. She returned an hour later, dragging 2 suitcases behind her. Dad jumped up, bewildered. "Vera." She shot him one final glance. "Your decision is made." She shot me a glance. Her eyes were lifeless. "You're not my kid." She burst through the front door, and just like that, she vanished. Keep it calm. No tossing items around, no last-minute requests. Only silence and the heaviness of our actions. Dad stood still for what felt like ages. "This isn't what I wanted," he finally said, his voice hollow, almost like he was just thinking out loud, but neither of us had stopped it when Wes still could. "But you didn't halt it either," I murmured. He glanced my way, and I caught it. Missed chances, disgrace. Something's breaking deep within. Yet he still didn't ask me to go. He still didn't declare it was over. We'd obliterated her and we stood strong. Ever found yourself in a situation like this? I get it. Your mind's racing with possibilities. What action did you